Hi, Keeper. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. So you are an author, a storyteller.
hmm
You've written this book called Helplessness. Can you give us an overview of what this book is about?
well, as you said, I am an author and I'm also a speaker. Helplessness is book one of a three-part series called From Helplessness to Hopefulness to Happiness. And helplessness, are the other two books, are tied to the emotional health traumas brothers experience once we learn our sisters have been sexually abused by our parents. It is possibly the very first time that a book of this kind has been written because it talks about the experience from a brother's perspective, which is not something that you see or even hear about. And it centers around my family's story. And come from a family of 10, four boys, four girls. Being the children in the family, I'm the second oldest of the eight. And that's what we're here to talk about. I will say this because I think it's really important. Helplessness is a very challenging topic because it does deal with child sexual abuse. And for anyone watching, for anyone listening, this topic can be very triggering emotionally. So I think it's important that we let people know that protect yourself at all costs during this conversation. If you have to leave the conversation, do so. But it is real important that you understand that some of the things that you and I are going to be talking about are very deep. They can be troubling. They can be very dark. But the foundation for the entire book series is one, being able to bring brothers, elevate our voice in this conversation where we don't have one, and protect as many children as we can, and to know that brothers and sisters can be allies as opposed to where we're typically on when we are talking about this, we're not always the best of friends on this topic. So I will defer to you, and you can tell me where you want to go.
Yeah, so if you are listening to this and you are feeling triggered, there are resourcing activities you can do. And some of those things are to connect to your breath. If you decide to stay and listen, to really connect to your body, you can pause, you can feel solid in your chair, feel your skin, and just remember, return to right here, right now. You are safe in the room you are in. You are not in a situation, that we're describing or something that may have happened to you that's similar. So
Mhm.
if any of that doesn't work, then feel free to turn it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is a topic that's extremely dear to me because there was molestation in my family and child sexual abuse in my family. And we had CPS at our house. And I do have two brothers, and I'm totally fascinated to hear your perspective on how that is for the brothers that have heard about, witnessed the sexual abuse of their sisters. And overall, I think when we have these conversations, what we're trying to do is to integrate and unify masculine and feminine energies, because we don't want to be at war with each other. We're wanting peace, harmony, intimacy, safety, and safety starts within. So I will just hand it back over to you to
Okay.
kind of describe what that experience has been like for you.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. In 1971, my family, we were very poor. We grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Uh, we were pretty much living in abject poverty. By the time I moved out, I had already lived in 21 different places. I was homeless 3 times. I had gone to 11 grade schools before I graduated high school. And the reason why I bring up 1971, when I was about 12 years old, my mother was trying to come up with ways in order for us to make some money because we could barely pay a $90 a month rent. So she began singing with my aunt and my uncle. And as fantastic as they were, there was still not enough money coming in to the house, even with my stepdad working. So she asked us kids if we would like to sing. Because as a family singing, we could make more money. So of course, we jumped at the opportunity. Like, yes, pretend to be the Jackson Five and make money. Are you serious? Yes. So we are doing our thing. We're working after hours clubs. We're working on the weekends. And we're getting up and we're going to school and we're doing all this stuff, trying to survive. And then one afternoon on a Saturday, the phone rings. And my mother says, shh, because we were rehearsing. And she goes to answer the phone and she says, hello? Who? Shh, Michael Jackson's on the phone. Yeah, that Michael Jackson. She then looks at the brother, the second or the third brother, and says, he wants to talk to you. Get over here. So my brother goes to the phone. He picks it up. He says, hello? Couple of minutes later, he hangs up the phone and he screams, Michael Jackson said he's heard of us. He said he's heard of me. He heard I sing and dance just like him. He says, don't quit. We will get there someday. Jump cut to 1977. Everything we touched was turning to gold. We had made Billboard magazine's top 100 3 times that year, album and 2 singles. We were doing concerts. We were in Teen Beat magazine, Right On magazine. We were everywhere. We started doing concerts, and I mean, we were everywhere, literally. And we were traveling, and finally, we were about to get out of this life of poverty. In the summer of that year, Motown Records was looking for the group to replace the Jackson Five, who they had lost 3 years earlier to Epic Records. And after their exhaustive search, they settled on my family. What? We're about to replace Michael Jackson and the Jackson Five, the same Michael Jackson who called 6 years earlier and said, don't quit, you'll get there someday. We are about to be their replacement at Motown. Motown had created the pilot TV show, all of the 30-minute sitcom, which I actually owned the pilot episode script. We were just doing so many things. So the week we are to sign this amazing contract, because it was going to be the largest new artist contract Motown offered anybody, us. My sister screams upstairs, boys, come downstairs, family meeting. Like, this is it. Cool. We're about to do it because I know we're signing the contract at the end of the week. Run downstairs, walk into the living room. As I walk into the living room, my oldest sister, who's the third oldest, is pacing the archway leading into the living room. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know why she's mad. Today's good news day, but maybe she had an argument with mom because they were always at each other. I still go into the living room and I look on the couch on my 3 youngest sisters. They're the 3 youngest of us 8. The 2 youngest are actually twins. They're huddled in a corner, but they're not saying anything. That's odd because all they did was make noise. All they did was laugh and talk. All they did was tease us boys. I mean, we were so tight. We only sang, we went to school, and we rehearsed. No gang banging, no drugs, no jail, no nothing. That's all we did, even though we were in the middle, the hub of all of that. Crips and the Bloods, that's where we lived. But there they are, silence. My 2 youngest brothers are also sitting on the couch, and they are like me, wondering what is going on. Y'all know what's about to happen? We're about to get out of this mess. But they're not saying anything because they're like me. They're like, okay. My oldest brother standing in, like us three others, boys, he's like, I don't know what's going on. However, earlier that morning, there was a lot of banging and closing and opening of doors. And it was my sisters talking, and I didn't know what they were talking about, but they were like agitated bees. I mean, they were just buzzing all over the place. I'm like, God, can y'all stop slamming the doors? So I don't know what's going on. But it turns out what was going on, we boys were about to find out. Shortly after I sat down, my mother and my stepfather walk into the living room. Now we have this brown recliner in the middle of the living room. My stepfather goes to the recliner, sits down, and he immediately does this. What is going on? My mother, who's usually bubbly, effervescent, full of energy, full of life, is silent. And she's got this very stoic look on her face. She walks to the middle of the room and turns around and scans the room and looks at her 8 children. Am I missing something? My mother then says the words no brother could ever prepare for. The words no brother ever expects to hear in his life. My mother says, your stepfather has been molesting your sisters for years. What? What are you talking about? No, this cannot be. And I'm starting to hear snippets as she's continued to talk. She mentions this sister's name. She says, liquor store. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Who? Where? How long? How many years? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm a brother and I'm hit with this news for the very first time. It turns out my sisters, the reason why they were talking earlier that day, they were determining whether or not today was the day us 4 boys were about to find out what has been happening, the deep, dark family secret. We are about to find out what has been going on. So my sisters knew what the meeting was. We 4 boys had no idea. And now we're hit with this, thinking we are about to hear something completely different. In California, we are known for our earthquakes. I mean, it is just common. With an earthquake, buildings break, bridges break, foundations of homes, everything breaks. All the material things can break. But when you are hit with an emotional earthquake, there's almost no coming back completely from that. You do your best, but can you really come back? No, you have to get to a place where you can manage it. That's what you're trying to do, trying to go forward in some sort of positive energy. So that was earthquake number 1 of 3 that we would hear in a 10-minute span. My mother then says, I have known all along. No, no, what is going on here? No. The earth opens and we drop, us 4 boys. We're falling into this void, this abyss. It is just drop, drop, drop. There's no handles. There's nothing to slow us down. There's nothing to arrest the speed of the descent. It's just not happening. Our world has just been torn apart. Once again, little snippets. It started here in that house. Wait, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? After my mother finishes, my sister, the oldest one who's pacing the archway, mentions the words that will lock me and my brothers down for 45 years. She points her finger at her 4 brothers and says to us, You can't talk about it. It didn't happen to you. It only happened to us girls. You can't talk about it ever. And like that, relationships between brothers and sisters that were so tight lay on the living room floor in shambles. So imagine you are a brother. Your world that is so interconnected with your siblings, especially your sisters, has just been broken. And the people you need to speak to the most just told you they want nothing to do with you. Where do we go? In 1977, there was no such thing as self help books for brothers. In fact, there still isn't on this topic. No one asked, are the brothers okay? Do we need to talk? Do you need assistance? But what we do hear are the whispers of, how come you didn't hear what was going on? How come you didn't see our tears? How could you not know? What did you not see? How could you? How could you? How could you? As brothers, when we hear this news about our sisters, oftentimes our sisters think, okay, we're immediately supposed to react. We're supposed to jump up and do something. At the time, I'm 16, my older brother's 17. We have no idea what to do because the people that we would normally go to help us with this, our parents are the perpetrators of the crime. As years went by, I learned that my stepfather got to all four of my sisters, and my mother knew about all of it, but she let it go. Partly because we were under contract with United Artists Records. We were contractually bound to finish this thing out. And if we didn't, we would owe upwards of $300,000, something we did not have. Not only that, how do we recover? So the cover up was now in full effect. For our sisters, they're wondering what's supposed to happen. So at the 10 minutes end, my mother and my stepfather had already planned his escape. We didn't know about it. He fakes a heart attack. Oh, my heart. I gotta go to the doctor. And my mother, oh, we gotta get him out of here. Okay, we have to move. We have to get your dad out of here. And so they're gone. The eight of us kids are still in the living room. No one is saying a word. My sisters already knew, not only because they had talked about it that day, but because they had lived it. They were already victims from years past. My brothers and I are now what many people would call collateral damage on this topic. But when sexual abuse takes place in your family, whether you know about it or not, you are greatly impacted. There are things being said, there are reactions happening, and you don't always know why. You don't understand what's going on between that relationship and this relationship. You're just completely in the dark. So you are being impacted. So once my brothers and I heard about it, the PTSD just suffocated us. Eventually, we went to our separate rooms, and I remember going upstairs, not sure how I got to the bedroom door, but I knew there was this maelstrom of emotions swirling in my bedroom, waiting for me. Guilt, shame, fear, doubt, so many things. Betrayal, how could I not know? And I know there's this white shark just waiting for me to step into the bedroom. And when I went in there, that's exactly what happened. It all just washed over me. Because when you are a brother, there's no place for you to go. For sisters and for women, even back then, there were millions of articles, there were hundreds of books, there were documentaries, there were movies. Unfortunately, there were those things. It's a sad commentary to say that there are so many things, and you have to understand the historical impact between men and women to understand why there are so many of those things out there. But for brothers, where do we go? There are no books, there are no documentaries. There's 12-step programs, never. One-step program, not on your life. So when my sister said, "You boys can't talk about it," I understand exactly why she said it. It took me a while to understand because we were innocent. We were guilty solely because of gender proximity. We were deemed guilty in their eyes. My sisters deemed us even more guilty because how could we not know? But that's the nature of sexual abuse, especially child sexual abuse. You don't want people to know. And if it involves little girls, if it involves women in the family, you certainly don't want the brothers to know because they become a problem that can be very, very dangerous for the predator. And so you make them silent. You make the sister silent. But for my sisters, they had had enough. And the 45-year journey for me has been one of how do I recapture my self-esteem? Because how do I capture my self-worth? Because what ended up happening was my mother said she would handle it. She would take care of it. And honestly, that became a warm blanket. That meant I did not have to do anything. And in that process of not doing something, an even greater tragedy occurs. That's the betrayal of my sisters because they're waiting for us to do something. But the problem for me and my brothers was you told us not to do anything. You told us we can't talk to you. We are the people who need to understand. And so we are just put in a box. We are locked down emotionally. As years went by and we maintained some relationship with our sisters, we knew and had we knew what was in the back of their minds from time to time. They would look at us and we would hear little things and like, but you don't want to talk to us. You made that very, very clear. It was so challenging that me and my brothers, we didn't talk to each other about it until maybe 10 years ago. And so the question becomes after the others have had their conversation, and what usually happens is my sisters had their conversation, my mother had her conversation, my stepdad had their conversation. After the betrayal, brothers are what is left over because no one wants to talk to us. We are the taboo subject in all of this. There's no space for us. Today in America, there are estimated to be some 44 million adults walking around who've been touched by sexual abuse directly. And when it comes to child sexual abuse, on any given day in the United States, there are at least 160 children that have been sexually abused that have been reported. So I know this last night, a little girl, a little boy went to bed. At around 1 o'clock in the morning, someone came in their bedroom. It will happen tonight and it will happen tomorrow night. For the sexual abuse in my family, it didn't just stop with my sisters. In fact, it didn't even begin with my sisters. And I think this is a very important thing to mention because oftentimes when I talk to women, when I'm out speaking, which I do quite a bit, I will hear the question, "It didn't happen to you, boy, so it only happened to your sister. So yeah, you are a victim, but you don't understand." But the fact of the matter is, I do understand because 6 years prior to my sisters in 1966, my older brother and I were sexually abused by our babysitter almost daily for 6 months. So I say that to say I do understand. In fact, I have a position that is not to be envied by anyone. I understand the direct damage and understand the collateral damage, understand both sides of the child sexual abuse coin. So my perspective is how would you say, well-rounded, I, I suppose. You know, that's nothing to be proud of, but it is what it is. And in that, it gives me a platform, a position, certainly from a man's standpoint, from a brother's standpoint, to really talk about it. So I know you probably have a number of questions. So that is the genesis of all of it, and there is quite a bit more. We even got into child sex trafficking in my family. We got into just so many things. We got into aunts, uncles, grandparents who stepped back, hoping that we would make it. So I'm going to uh, uh, let you take the floor and see where you want to go with this.
So this is, there are so many elements of this and so many relationship dynamics that happen in this. And the conversation is so largely focused on the women and the girls that I feel that there are a lot of men that are not coming forward with their own story of abuse. And there's this like, this culture or temperature of, well, it's worse for women and girls. Boys can just they need to step, toxic masculinity, right? This is boys are the perpetrators. And then when they point at you and say you can't talk about it, there's so much shame in these girls that they don't want anybody. They feel dirty and damaged. We have a culture, a religious culture that teaches that if you're not a virgin or you're untouched sexually, then you're dirty and discarded. And when you lose your virginity, you're losing something, that you're disgusting, basically. Yep. And so anybody who has been molested, male or female, will feel a sense of disgust for themselves because, and this is actually from law enforcement, some of the interviews that they've done and the research that they've done with victims, they have highlighted that some of the worst guilt comes from any feeling of pleasure that was experienced by the child during the abuse. And then the caregiver's intense reaction about, oh my God, this is so bad. This is so bad. And this shouldn't have happened to you. And it was wrong. And then if the child had felt any pleasure, now they have this deep shame and they mistrust their body and they reject their body because they think their body has betrayed them. Another way we think our bodies have betrayed us is when we go into freeze or fawn response in our nervous system, like when we do nothing. And we can feel a lot of disgust and shame because why didn't I defend myself? Why did I make myself more attractive to the predator? Well, for survival. And people think, when they just want to forget about it and move on, that, oh, I've dealt with that. We're so told in this culture to just forgive and forget, move forward, be positive, say something, give yourself a mantra or an affirmation that will keep you moving forward and keep you productive. And then when we go through adulthood and we see the results of our lives and our circumstances, and we're ending up in relationships where we are sexually shamed or repressed because we have a partner who's sexually shamed and repressed, and because we've related to ourselves that we should be sexually shamed and repressed for safety, then we get into partnership where that is mirrored back to us, and then we don't have real intimacy, and we don't have good sexual relationships or good romantic relationships. We will have difficulties with money. We'll have difficulties with career. We'll have difficulties with any form of self-expression or creativity. And something that you mentioned this relationship between the brothers and the sisters where you're not allowed to talk about it. Like, I'm going to compare something that happened in my family was we began comparing our experiences and saying, mine's worse than yours. You don't get to talk about yours. And just being at total war with each other because of that.
That's usually the stance, and certainly from my family and other women that I've spoken to, what brothers are hit with. You can't talk about it because historically, and women today control the narrative on this, as well they should, um, because what has happened to them. My older brother is very fond of saying, if you're a woman in this world, every guy should just assume today, just assume it right out, that they have experienced some sort of abuse. Don't even question it. Yeah, we guys have our own things, we have our own challenges and things, but you need to assume that every woman that or girl that you come up against, they have experienced something. One of my sisters would hit us with that. She would start to normalize what happened to us in order to elevate her and her sister's situation, when that is something we cannot do if we are going to solve this or be more effective with it. Oftentimes, brothers and sisters become enemies. And my position is, in order to have any kind of real healing, because even as you said, even as we go our different ways, our sisters go over here, brothers go over here, there's still so much unresolved trauma on both sides, gender wise, individually, family. There's so much unresolved conversations that need to be had. The only way you bring families back together is you have to have those conversations that no one wants to have. It's like at Thanksgiving, do not bring up politics, do not bring up religion, do not bring up who so-and-so is having an affair with. You know, the other one that no one wants to talk about is who was molested. How do we help them? Because going into that conversation, that overwhelms all the other conversations. The previous one that I talked about, like religion and politics, that is a conversation no one ever wants to have. And so when you are a brother, the challenge becomes, certainly after being told you can't talk about it, what we hear is you don't matter. Your voice doesn't matter. None of you matter. And so as a man, and you're taking that forward, and you are having relationships with women, and you are, as you said, looking to have healthy relationships, certainly healthy sexual relationships, knowing that whatever you do or say could trigger something that you have no idea has happened to them in the past, because still no one is talking. How do we help brothers is my charge, is my mission. How do we elevate our voices? You're absolutely correct when you mentioned that more and more men should, or men in general should, start to talk more and more about it. And we're at a place now where men are starting to talk about what happened to them. We're starting to get people of prominence, so to speak, celebrities, athletes, actors who are speaking, which becomes the foundation for every other guy being able to talk. Well, if this person's talking about it, I can talk about it. But there needs to be a lot more conversation, and those conversations center around their sexual abuse only. It doesn't speak to the collateral damage that brothers experience after learning about their sisters. What we're talking about here crosses racial lines, it crosses religious lines, it crosses political lines, it crosses gender lines, it crosses wealth lines, it crosses education lines, it crosses oceans. It happens all around the world, as has happened since the beginning of time. Child sexual abuse and brothers being left out of the conversation. How do we go forward so that brothers can feel empowered to talk to themselves. Because as I said, when it came down to me and my brothers, we didn't talk about this amongst ourselves. We were so traumatized by saying you can't talk about it. But me and my older brother, we had already been sexually abused. So you would think that we would say, well, wait a minute, this happened to us, but it didn't, because we wanted to. It's really weird when sisters tell brothers something like this they can't do. It's almost instantaneous. The
It's like
lockdown is,
trying to honor their pain by keeping
yeah,
yours.
yeah, and that really doesn't do anyone any good,
Mm,
because at the end of the day, your sisters still need to talk to you. If you have any kind of respect for each other, they need you on their side. And for brothers, we need them on our side to help us understand and process our pain, our trauma. Tell me what has happened to you. I need to know, because for me, and it's written in the book, it's very vivid. I had very vivid imaginings of what my stepfather was doing to my sisters. I imagined him bringing one of my sisters into a dark closet and unzipping his pants. I imagined him bringing my youngest sisters into the bedroom and unzipping his pants. And as I write this in the book, this is what I imagine. This is what I sense happened. This is what my feeling is what happened. One of my sisters read the book and she said, "You had it absolutely correct." That's exactly what happened. Not only did you have it correct, it wasn't until I read your book that I understood you boys were carrying all this trauma. I thought all these years you guys just didn't care. And I'm
mm,
like, no, you said we couldn't talk to you. And it goes back to what you said. We're honoring what you demanded. It wasn't
right.
asked, it was demanded. And so there's this disconnect. Sisters who don't want to tell their brothers, even after they have learned about it, the disconnect is you can't approach me about it, but I want you to help me. And
Yeah.
brothers end up in a really awkward spot. We end up in this situation. I'm asked about it quite often. So, what's the biggest challenge for brothers? Well, number one, we're left out of the conversation. But then the other shoe drops, which is number two, we are expected to answer for our non participation
Hmm.
in the conversation. You can't have it both ways. And I've spoken to other women, and they said, we need to get to a place where we have to open the conversation to allow men and allow brothers to talk to us. Because if we're the only ones controlling the conversation, we almost get to a point where there's an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it was very much that way. I didn't realize until 10 years ago. I didn't even connect it until 10 years ago that I was sexually abused by our babysitter. I just thought, okay, that happened. All right. But I'm sitting in my bedroom with my wife, and I'm telling her the chapter that I'm writing in the book. I'm saying I'm writing about this and what happened to this sister and what happened to this sister. And she says, you're a victim. And I said, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. I'm like, no, I'm just telling you what happened. What do you mean I'm a victim? She says, look at you. You're a mess. You're sweating. You're shaking. You can't even get the words out that you want to say. Of course, you're a victim. All four of you boys are victims. And it wasn't until that moment, I'm 55 at the time, that I even embraced that I was a victim and now a survivor. So unless a brother is able to embrace and come to the reality that you're a victim, collateral or direct, you are a victim. You are in pain. You are in trauma. You you're just wandering. And what ends up happening, the relation, and this speaks to one of the things that you had mentioned, the relationship between brothers and sisters and men and women in general. The trajectory of a brother's life and how they react, not only with their sisters, but other women going forward, will be directly tied to the support we do or do not get. If we can't get the support, then we really can't move forward. And for me, it was like, I need to figure out a way to recapture my self-esteem, my self-worth, so I could help my sisters. And what I had two opportunities to do something about it. Uh, in 1986, I was about to marry my wife, and 3 months prior to that, I just could not deal with the fact that my mother had let this man back in the family, and he was around my sisters. And for men, you can go to a very, very, very dark place, a very dangerous place. And I went there. One weekend, I told my fiance, who's my wife, and we've been married 38 years now. I said, I've got to go home. I'll be back on Monday. And she says to me, is everything okay? I said, yeah, it will be. And she says, can you tell me what's going on? And I said, no, I can't. I'll be back. I go back and my bedroom is still there. So I go there and it's a Saturday night and I pace the bedroom for 2 hours. It was a nice, cool summer day. It was a nice breeze. I opened the windows. It was really comfortable, but I'm sweating because I'm waiting for my stepdad to come out of my mother's bedroom. I had already determined that I was going to kill him. It was done. I was already prepared to forfeit my life in order to protect my sisters. He's going to be dead and he'll finally be out of their life. But the problem is something I did not think far enough in advance was when I do that, my sister's trauma is going to be magnified because they're going to say, I should have kept quiet. I shouldn't have said anything. He would still be here. It would have been cascading the trauma throughout the family, even so much greater than the one that had already existed. So I'm in the bedroom and I'm waiting. We love playing sports as kids. I love playing softball. I had my favorite baseball bat. Like I loved that bat. That bat was just made for my hands. I had that rested against the door jamb in the bedroom. And I'm waiting for my stepdad to come out of the bedroom. A couple hours go by, as I said, and I finally hear creak. Heavy footsteps. Don't. He's coming out of the bedroom. It's now. I open the door and I look out. There he is. All 6'6", 250 pounds of him, wearing this massive afro wig that put his height over 7 feet tall. I'm like, okay, I'm going to confront him in the hallway. But when I do that, there's one place I cannot stand. We had a really short wall, about 3.5 feet high, that overlooked the stairwell. I said, okay, I cannot be there. Absolutely not, because all he has to do is, and I'm dead, possibly snapping my neck at the bottom of the stairs. Can't be there. I need to be against the wall. So he sees me, and I had already heard him hitting my mom in their bedroom because I could hear the dresser hitting against the wall. I hear the perfume bottles that are on the dresser just clanking and breaking on the floor. I said, okay, they're at it again. So he sees me as he's coming out of the door and he's out of his door and he sees me step out of mine and we start to converge. And he says, hey, and I'm just looking. And there was a sense of comprehension that came across his face. It was, okay, it's about to happen. And of course, this is the only one who would do it. We converge. He's 6'6", 250 pounds, like I said. I'm 5'8", 145 pounds. My face comes to his chest. I can't even look over his shoulders. He's so much bigger than me, over 100 pounds, almost a foot taller. We come, as I say, face to chest. And I look up the side of this mountain and say, you have 24 hours to leave this house. If you are still here by this time tomorrow, you will be dead because I will have killed you. I turned around and I walk back to my bedroom, but I'm hearing thump, thump, thump. I'm hearing his footsteps. I open the door, close it as I step in. Still hearing footsteps, but they're fading. He's gone back to their bedroom. Okay, 24 hours. I survived this night. I walk downstairs, I go out the door, get in my little orange Fiat X19, and I do drive back to my fiance's place. But the next morning, I know I have to go back because I have to finish this job because there's no way I can get married, leave the house, and he still be there. So I go back the next morning. Have the bat with me, walking up the walkway, walk up to the stairs and get to the door. And then I decide, I'm going to leave the bat outside. I don't want to aggravate the situation because if I open the door and he has a gun pointing directly at the door, waiting for me, which I know he's going to do, this could set the whole thing off. I'm shot, I'm killed, I'm dead, I'm in a body bag. He's going to prison. Okay, not quite the plan I had, but it still solves what I wanted to have solved. I open the door. It is quiet in the house. Like, okay. Walk into the living room. Walk to the stairwell. I don't hear anything. Walk through the dining room. Nothing. Look in the kitchen. Nothing. But I hear some sound in the back of the house. I walk back there. We had a little makeshift studio, recording studio. Open the door. My younger brother is back there working on some music. And I said, is so-and-so here? And he said, no, he left. He left last night. Okay. That was it for that night. But as I said, my mom, she's all about image. And yet I want to try to create some kind of relationship with her. And this is part of the victim's mentality, especially children. We want to still have the approval of our parents. And it's almost no matter what age you are, you want to know that they like you, they respect you. That's usually how it goes. You could be 75 years old, they could be 99, and you still want them to like you, even though they may have done some serious nonsense. So I ended up doing something that is the greatest regret of my life. I go to my mother and I said, okay, look, the wedding's coming up. And I say this because all this is in the book. I'm incredibly vulnerable. This is a brother's story. This is all about the woulda, coulda, shouldas. This is all about the things that we experience as a family, as brothers and as sisters, because we ultimately have great relationships to this day. That's the upshot. That's the final version of all this, which will be in the book, Happiness. But I told my mother, I said, okay, look, I know what you're all about. Understand, I do not want this to happen. I want us to be on speaking terms. I do not want this to happen. Do not do this. If you want to invite him, I'm going to leave that up to you because I know in my heart she is not going to do it. She has already seen the damage that she has caused, the betrayal, the relationship. She has destroyed everything. So this is my olive branch to her. Because if I get married, I'm going to have kids. Maybe my kids could have some kind of relationship with their grandmother. Maybe. And so I said, do you understand what I'm saying? She says, yes. I said, okay. She says to me, okay, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. That was not the answer I was expecting. But I'm a man of my word. And I gave her the say on it. And I walk out, what have I done? Our wedding comes off, and there he is standing in the middle of our wedding. And I, the brother who put him out, puts him back in front of his sisters. Me, the one who did so much to get him out, the one ready to kill him. It is the greatest regret of my life. How could I have done that? Brothers, we try, certainly me, try so hard to make things okay for, in my family, for everyone. There's got to be some common ground somewhere. There's got to be some way that we can communicate. But in that instance, no, I did that. And it broke what was already broken into even smaller pieces. Luckily for me, in 2019, I was able to bring some closure for my sisters because I just could not let the situation go. I am not speaking to a couple of my sisters. One of them I'm still pretty close with at the time. Um, it occurred to me as I'm writing the book, and I know how the book has to end. The book has to end, even though many people kept telling me the 10 years that it took for me to write it, you need to finish this because it's too important. And I said, no, 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 no. There's only one way helplessness can close. I have to confront him again. So I decide to let me see if this fool has a Facebook page. Couldn't possibly. I mean, he's a sexual predator. There's just no way. I decide, okay, let me look. Type in his name. Are you kidding me? He's got a Facebook page. Scroll through his profile. There's an announcement there that his wife, after my mom died in December. Oh, so he remarried. A week from now, in January, mid-January, he's going to have a celebration of life for her. Huh, where at? It's in Van Nuys. It's 10 minutes from me. Okay, okay, okay. This is it. This is the moment. This is the time. I called my older brother, yo, so and so is going to have a going home party for his wife who died in December. He's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I said, look, the funeral already happened. We are not crashing a funeral. This is a celebration of life. I said, he is going to see me that day. Absolutely. My older brother and I would go to the church. We let the entire service go on as planned. It was a beautiful service for this woman. By all accounts, she was a magnificent woman, but she had no idea who she was married to or his past. 90 minutes go by, but before the whole service started, the pastor in Van Nuys, he was an older white guy, overweight. He's dressed in this white shawl, and he was magnificently dressed. And he's looking around the church, and it is packed with Black people. And I am all telling my brother, I said, they have never had this many Black people in this church ever, because we decided to look on their website, and it's primarily a white Protestant church. I'm like, we going up in there. I am going there. I am doing this. So as he's walking around the church, he's all smiles, like, look at this is wonderful, wonderful. He stops and talks to this one guy and says, isn't this wonderful? This is such a beautiful day. Look at all the joy and all the love. Can you feel it? This is what he's saying to this one guy. And this one guy was me. He didn't talk to anyone else in the church. I'm sitting down and I look up at him and I said, yeah, I can feel the love. I told my brother, I said, this is providence. It was meant for us to be here because we are not here to only get closure for our sisters, but we are here to let everyone else here know what is in their midst, to let them know we are here to save these families if we can. So after the service is over, we get in the receiving line. We're forth from him, and we get up there, number 3, number 2, number 1, and then the roles have been reversed. He's sitting down. I'm standing up. I get in front of him, and once again, he looks up. Hey, the fear on his face. I'm looking down. I whisper in his ears as I lean down. Your day of reckoning has arrived. It is over for you. Every expletive I can think of is highlighting every other word. It is over for you. I had printed 8 by 10 pictures of my little sisters when he first started on them. I take them out of this envelope. This is so-and-so. She's 5 years old. You did this to her. This sister, this sister, this. I go through all 8 of us and drop them on the floor at his feet. By the time it was over, I had the church for 90 minutes. It was mine. And one of the interesting aspects of it was a couple of things. The pastor and another female pastor from Chatsworth was there. Neither one of them said a thing to me and my brother. You've got 2 men here who are hurting, who are in pain. And not one of you said anything. 2 weeks later, I get in touch with the female pastor in Chatsworth. I said, you mentioned in your speech that the woman who passed away was one of your oldest and dearest friends. You heard what I said. I think you should call and make sure the children in that family are okay. She said, I can't. I'm not going to do it. I said, what do you mean you're not going to do it? You are willing to put these children at risk, have him around them? Well, it didn't happen in my church. They're not part of my congregation. I said, that's beside the point. You said this woman was one of your oldest and dearest friends. So you're going to step aside, as so many people do. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, managers, they all stepped aside for us. This woman put these children at risk. When I dropped the pictures and I picked them up, my older brother and I were walking through, and this woman comes up to us. And she says, gentlemen, this is not the time and the place for this conversation. Understand, we have already been engaged, and the conversation started off quiet, but by the time it was done, we did not put hands on anybody. We didn't touch anyone. That was not the mission. The mission was completed. To get some closure for my sisters, to try to recapture a bit of who I am and what I could be as a brother, what I should have been years before. This woman says, it's not the time or the place for this. My brother, who only said 2 things the entire 90 minutes, and this is the last one, he said, there is never a right time for this conversation. And other people in the church heard him, everyone who was silent, and they all started shaking their head. This woman is a family therapist. And that's what you say to us? Are you kidding? The right time for this conversation? This is the right time because every time you have this conversation, it is the right time. It may not be convenient for some people,
Right.
but it is the right time. And so I said to her, you are asking the wrong thing. You're asking us to be quiet. That's the wrong question. I said, do you know what the question is? And this is a therapist, a family therapist. She supposedly deals with this stuff. She said, no. I said, here's the question. At this time, the church is silent. I have everyone's attention. I said, the only question you should be asking me and every single one of you in this church is this question. Did he get to my children? That's it. That's the question. Because now you need to focus on your children and what their needs and what their pain, what their trauma may be. But you need to get this guy out of your life. That's the only question that matters right now. Not the one, can we talk about this later? We make an 180-degree turn and we walk out the church. We get into the car. I'm driving, windows are down, and start going up the street, Orion Street. But we're going at a slow pace. And we hear, hey, all of this is in the book. It is written in tremendous detail. It's pretty cinematic. I look at my brother, did you hear something? He said, yeah, I think so. But I keep going. Hey, louder. And I bring the car to a halt. And I look across at the church, and there's this girl about maybe 20, 21 years old, tall, sleek, in this really fine dress that's just hugging her. And she's running across the wet grass because the grass had been watered earlier in the day, and it's just slowing her steps. There's just mud all over her shoes in the bottom of her dress. She hits the sidewalk, clack, 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 clack. Hits the grass again, and then comes onto the asphalt, clack, 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 clack. And I look at her, I said, hi, I need to talk to you. Okay. The woman whose service that you were just at, that was my grandmother. He was married to my grandmother. I need to talk to you. I said, okay, here's my cell number. If I could answer any questions, if I could be of any help, or be any service, I'm more than happy to talk to you, family, whatever you guys would like. Give her the number. She says, thank you. I'm going to call you. Takes off, runs across the street. I look at my brother. He got to her, didn't he? Yep, I think so. Or at least one of her nieces or sisters or something. Never heard from her because I think someone told her, no, you need to leave it alone. And yes, I was able to bring some closure for my sister that called them. They were overjoyed. They couldn't believe what I did. And I was able to recapture a large part of my manhood, my brotherhood, my self-esteem. And prior to writing the book, I called one of my sisters and I said, look, I'm going to write this book about the experience that I have as a brother. I'm not looking to bash or beat up on anyone, even though there's going to be some storytelling. But I think people should know what brothers go through, what we experience when we are locked down and we're not allowed to talk. Because I've spoken to a number of men who said, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going through the same thing right now. I cannot talk about it. My sisters won't allow it. They won't talk to me. And they said, I can't talk about it to anybody. And I got the response I never expected in my life. I went over to her house and we were outside her garage, and I'm in tears as I'm telling her, I'm going to write this. And so I'm not asking for permission. I'm going to write it. I just think you all should know what I'm about to do. I owe you that, but I'm going to write this. And she said to me, of course you should write it. It's your story. It's all four of you boys' story. Of course you should write. All four of you should write a book. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is not the response you're supposed to be giving me. You're supposed to be saying, oh, hell no. No, no, don't you dare do. But that's not what I got. She showed me grace. She showed me understanding. She showed me tolerance. She gave me room. I called the sister who said, I can't ever talk about it. And I know what I'm getting there because I know how bombastic she can be. I know how she can be very protective. I pick up the phone and I put it down, pick it up, put it down. 30 minutes. I mean, that phone weighed 10 tons. Nothing ever felt so heavy. But I finally picked it up about 30 minutes later because I had something more important to do. I had to go watch some paint dry. That was more important than talking to her. I mean, that paint, I needed to make sure it was going to dry because it was like I need to put some more coats. That's just where we go when we don't want to do something. I forget the author of the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It is so difficult to feel the fear and do it anyway. But I had to do it. So I call her and I say, look, I'm going to write this book. I've already spoken to so and so. You just need to know. She's very protective of my mother to this day. But in that moment, she said, of course you should write the book. So knowing what our mother did, she's protective, and that's part of the what's the syndrome? The
Stockholm.
Money.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, absolutely. It's the whole Stockholm syndrome. We've got some of that. But even with all that going on, she said you should write your book. And the upshot of all of this is, after all of these years, three of my sisters contribute to the book, including her, including the first sister and the sister who said, I had no idea. Three of my sisters contribute to this book. I don't think that has ever happened. Two of my brothers contribute to the book. You get a full family view of what happened. And they will participate in hopefulness, that book, and they will participate in happiness. So taking the steps to go forward and healing requires so much courage. You, first of all, certainly for a brother, you have to be willing to admit and accept the fact that you are a victim. Very difficult for men. I was on a show yesterday and we were talking about toxic masculinity. Is with the host was a guy, and we were just delving deep into men and our inability to have a willingness to be vulnerable. Well, if you're carrying masculine and female energy, you have to be able to work both ways. You got to be able to do it. And most men only want to hang out in the men's locker room. You're not going to get any support there. You're in another echo chamber. It's just not going to happen. So you have to admit that you are a victim. And then next, you have to understand what happened to you as part of your DNA. It is a part of you now. There's no escaping. And like DNA, which is self-replicating, this type of trauma can self-replicate in ways you never, ever expected it to. And it usually comes in the form of damaged relationships. That's where the greatest damage is done. And there are many steps that I took. I'm writing this series on what I did, but I know the top three are recognition and acceptance. Number two is understand that it is a part of you and you can't escape it. And number three is probably the most difficult thing, certainly for men, and it's difficult for anybody, but certainly for men, just because of who we are and how society has, how we have constructed society to be, how men have done it. And that is, you have to find someone you can talk to. You got to get out of your head. You got to talk. So I know I've spoken a lot, and but I can talk about this for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, the masculine energy is one of action. So when we tell men that they don't get to be a part of the conversation, they can't even talk about it, but they have the deep desire to take some kind of action to correct the situation, we're really robbing men of their manhood.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
becomes paralyzing, like for the rest of their life in
yeah,
many ways.
absolutely.
And for women, there are many reasons that we want people to read our minds. There are many reasons. Much of our conditioning has been to be silent and be a slave and take care of everybody else and not take care of yourself. And so I have compassion for that, but we now have to learn how to talk about the things that are really uncomfortable and to stop protecting the perpetrators and to stop expecting people to read our minds
Hmm.
because they can't. And
We have a
and
hard enough
then
time reading our own minds.
right, and then having this resentment. Oh, you
Yeah.
didn't take the action to support me because you didn't guess what I needed. So we have to heal this together. We have to have this
Mm,
conversation together.
yeah.
And women have this primal need for safety, to have protectors and providers. And we put that, we leave it in a very primitive form. And we protect perpetrators because we're so afraid of not having our provisions taken care of.
That was
We're
my
so
mom.
afraid of
Yep.
not being,
Yeah.
I think, something when I've healed a lot of my trauma, something that I realized was this may be the first lifetime that I have lived where I was not the property of a man.
Mm,
So, of course, I think that all of my value and all of my worth and all of my safety is with a man. So, if I am not with a man, I divorced recently, and the struggle that I went through to reclaim my own value, just not being in a partnership with a man and to have things in my own right. Like women weren't even allowed to have bank accounts in their own name in the 60s.
hmm.
So these are new developments, and we have to work with our, as you said, what's in our DNA. What's in a woman's DNA is property. I'm property and I'm basically a slave. I don't have property in my own right, and I don't have um, so recognizing that and alchemizing that and moving that energy out of our bodies. And I think somatic practices are incredibly
Hmm.
important for that, because having the conversation is where it starts. And then we have to recognize, oh, it is in my DNA, it is in my tissues, and I have to move this energy through my tissues. So opening that door for us to have these conversations together and to give the men the power to act and to ask for what we need as women
Hmm.
is the beginning. And continuously saying this is not the time for that conversation is never going to work.
No, because as you say, not only can men not read your mind, you can't read ours. So
Right.
it is such a catch 22. Everyone wants to be heard because this is what I understand. This is what I know, be it a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. When we're in trauma, we all want to be heard. We all want to be seen. We all want to be understood. At the end of the day, we want to be able to move forward with our lives in a positive direction. We all want that. That is not dominated by any gender. Everyone wants those things. Recognition. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be loved. We all want that. But in this case, when you have child sexual abuse or sexual abuse, uh, the only way you can achieve that is being able to take some steps to heal yourself. And even when you do these things, does it mean that you are free of it? No, you are never free of it. But you want to get to a point where can I somehow use it if it is impacting my life greatly? Can I somehow use it to propel me forward in a positive direction? Because for me, I began to look at, okay, my family's situation doesn't have to end in tragedy. It doesn't. It can be used to empower and educate and help. And in that way, we are doing good because where we thought we all came together to do this great music thing, I believe that's not why my family was put together. I believe my family was put together to go through this specific thing. So then we can use our experience to help others. If we had just done music, we Jackson 5, any number of groups, we'd just be them. And then how much do you really do? I will say this about my sister.
Well, that was going on in their family too.
Absolutely.
They just weren't healing
Absolutely.
it.
The Osmonds, we just would have been them.
Yeah.
I will say this about my sister, who said we couldn't talk. Imagine if we had signed with Motown and all this comes out years later. We'd be a VH1 behind the music story. We'd be a BET story. We'd be an MTV story. We'd be the tragic family story. And then every time it hits the screen, our trauma is relived over and over and over again, not only for us, but for our children, our grandchildren. We're talking generational trauma. So we were able to stop it in its tracks. And I'm so incredibly happy to say, with three of my sisters, I have amazing relationships with now. Fantastic. But it took work. And I just think back, yeah, we probably would have made a lot of money, but goodness, at what cost?
Right, right.
I can't imagine being a VH1 story behind the music. Oh, the Whitney family, blah, 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 blah. The tragedy, the this, the that. Who knows what the headlines would have been?
Yeah.
But the things that we did, there's certainly the things that I did as a brother, just about any brother can do to heal themselves. So we're working on that. My assistant is like, you need to put together something because people keep asking you, you need to put together a steps booklet or something. So
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's beautiful. Yeah, we are at an hour and 20 minutes, and there's so much more to say. So maybe I can have you back on and we can go further with it. I mean, ultimately, I think our goal here is to prevent other children from having to go through this experience.
Yes.
And if we're healing ourselves as victims and healing our own DNA and our own tissues, then we also have to remember that perpetrators are usually victims. That's how they end up becoming a perpetrator. And so there's a whole other level of healing that needs to be done on that side. And those people need to feel that they can heal instead of continuing to do what they're doing, instead of continuing to be a perpetrator. So that's a whole other conversation, I think. But
well, Rihanna, I would be honored to be back anytime. I'd love to be of service if you want to delve into this conversation or, go even deeper with just some of the other male energy, female energy, things like this. I will be honored.
amazing. All right. So great talking with you today. Thank you.
Good speaking to you too. Take care.
How do people find you?
Oh, there you go. Goodbye. People could find me at my website, keepercatran.whitney.com. They can find me on Facebook under Keeper Catran-Whitney or TikTok, the same thing. Instagram, keeper Catran-Whitney. Like I said, I'm author, speaker. I speak on this subject because it's, like I said, possibly the very first time the perspective from a brother has even been discussed. My book can be gotten at, or where most other books these days, called Amazon. And it's helplessness, the emotional health trauma brothers experience. Oh, and the reason why I go with health trauma as opposed to mental health, because I think even though there's a lot of mental health discussion, but to me, mental health speaks of you're alone, you are in isolation, it's logic thinking, and so the support that you get typically comes from that mindset. What we're talking about here is emotional health. You know, emotional health is not something that's really talked about because it means you've got to share. It means you're talking about feelings. It also means inclusion, which is the great part about it. If you can include other people, then the chances of you healing are so much greater. So this is for me because it's so emotional, the trauma. It's an emotional health situation and not a mental health situation.
Yeah, I love that. And I will have all the links in the episode description so that people can find you.
Well,
And
look forward to talking to you again.
yeah, me too. All
And if
right.
I could be of any help with anything, you know how to reach me. Just reach out.
Okay. Sounds
Have a
good.
great day in Palm Springs.
Thank you. Have a great day with the nails.
Bye.
Bye.